Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Inverted podcast, where we discuss all things identity and security because those things are just different to manage or to sell. Success is when nothing happens. We try to drive lines down. We don't know how much balance is out there. So, how do we show performance? We can't sell the things the same way we do normal products. And so, everything is different for us. And we talk about this regularly with my friends, Dana, Dario, and Tom. Welcome, as always. And Dario is on the US, on Dana's side of the world, and Dana is on our side of the world, so they swapped. But this week we have a special guest, Amit, whom I've encountered in my work in security, who brings a unique perspective. And you can find all of us on LinkedIn. So go search us on LinkedIn if you want to, and connect with us, ask us questions. Join our LinkedIn group, the Inverted PM group that we have on LinkedIn, if you want to have more discussions and if you want to ask more questions. And today, the thing we want to talk about is the risk that's coming up with AI. And this is not new, but we've just never discussed it on this podcast yet. And Amit, I want to start with you because you said to me that you're specifically worried about AI risk. What are some of the things you're seeing?
First of all, thanks, Jeroen, for having me here, and nice to meet you all. Cheers to the work that you are doing for the community. Yeah, I mean, AI is a big topic, right? And AI risk. I am for someone who has been working on the productivity suite for a long time, and especially in the messaging domain. I see phishing becoming more creative. I see a lot of bad actors where you have phishing that is happening in a very different way than it was happening before. It is not standard impersonation that was happening. For example, you have creative landing pages that you can design with AI. You put people and bait them to click on certain links, and they land into real landing pages, and the next thing they know, they're downloading malware. So this is this is the kind of use cases that are coming into the phishing space. And I think AI is enabling everyone. AI is not enabling security researchers. AI is enabling bad actors as well. So I believe the risk is immense.
So you're saying that AI is making it easier to do more sophisticated and better attacks. Dario, do you think besides enabling attackers, there are some other forms of AI risk we should be considering?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like AI is such a big space, and as Amit said, it makes more sophisticated attacks cheaper and easier to perform. But then we also see a lot of when it comes to creating information, it could be misinformation or misleading information or harming information. But what AI enables to generative AI specifically enables people to do is to create more of it. So they can iterate much faster than they did before. Like sometimes I say that phishing campaigns or attackers in general, they're a bit like marketing people. They need to optimize the outcome based on the investments they're making. So just like marketing people, they run different versions of their attacks. And with a generative AI, they can run so much more different versions of their attacks and measure the different outcomes than they were able to do before when they had to write the emails themselves and sometimes making spelling mistakes. So it's a tool, it's an accelerator and an amplifier.
So you're saying it's doing more, higher quality, and that's just the attackers. Dana, any other forms of risk we should think about as inverted people for AI?
Yeah, I think I look at it like three different areas that you need to think about. One is the AI attacking and defending. You're building things and trying to defend from attackers. The second one is like integrating AI into your product and things like discover understandability. Like, do users or admin understand what AI is flagging and why, and how it interacts and interacts with your product? And then the third thing is like what enterprises worry about also, which is AI adoption and shadow AI and controlling and governing AI use. And so those are kind of three big topics that are brought up by when you think about AI. And then there's also like AI policy that's part of the enterprise governance, and what is good use of AI, and what data that AI is being brought in. So it's a huge service area, and it reminds me that the third part that I mentioned reminds me of like when cloud app security was coming up, and you really have like enterprises have a bunch of things they need to look at. One is shadow AI use, right? And they need to figure out how to document that and discover it and find it. The second thing is like AI, like firewalling, being able to block and control when AI is used. And the third thing is AI governance, how it's properly used, who's allowed to use it properly, what kind of data is coming in and out. So AI, like when LLMs appeared and adoption started to pop, it really sprung a whole lot of big issues on everyone that need to be addressed. Right?
Yeah, and Dom, a question for you. You talk to a lot of enterprises. One of the worries that I see is that customers or organizations are worried that AI might accidentally reveal information to employees that they're not supposed to know, and they currently have quite an understanding of who can see what with massive policy engines and other things. Is that something you're seeing as well? What are other things you're seeing in bigger organizations?
Yes, it's definitely something that we're seeing. So we're all familiar with some of the kind of more entertaining versions of early AI adopters and the unintended consequences in terms of business outcomes or information being revealed. I think the thing, if I go back to Dana's menu of AI challenges, the one that we most commonly see is the governance piece. Like even before trying to grapple with the technology and the implications, like another kind of fundamental cybersecurity principle is just visibility. Like how much of this is actually being used in the enterprise, and before we start to market good AI or bad AI, valid or not, internally hosted, externally hosted, sovereign actor, relevant or so, just understand how much of it is in use in your enterprise and what kind of control plane do you have around that usage.
Yeah, that's a really great question. And Amit, you put your hand up. How do you do that in your environment? Because you have a much more complex environment than some of us.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to say it is not only about technological risks with AI, right? Because when you are dealing with physical environment and you have a lot of cyber physical risks. So, for example, we are talking about autonomous vehicles in manufacturing plants. You are talking about AI-enabled machinery, where the machine is basically creating the end product, and any bad actor will be able to create some kind of faulty product, faulty machinery, or impose. And this is not only something that is with respect to the production or cost, it also leads to health and safety and other concerns. I mean, it's much more than what we think in the technology space, basically.
Yeah, so it's interesting what you're saying, because when I'm in the technology space, I'm always worried about files going missing or some app giving advice because the AI is unexplainable. But you're just making me aware of something much more serious, is when an AI-controlled autonomous vehicle might hit someone in a plant and they get seriously injured, or you have an AI controlling a sort of chemical process and then it produces faulty products for a few million people, and you might only discover once there has been like massive impact to society.
Exactly. And I think the actors are getting smarter, right? So that's why it is very important when we are dealing with physical systems. It is very important to make sure that the AI that we choose is also up to the security standards, also meeting all of the architectural standards, and has AI risk in mind. There is a proper risk evaluation in place when we are doing this.
And Tom, before we go to Dana, Tom, I have a question for you, because I know you need to drop earlier as well. So Amit just said, we need to pick AI that's up to modern security and governance standards, but do we actually know that? Like if a company asks you, how do we pick the right AI? And I know it might be catching you unprepared with this question, but just some initial thoughts on like, if a company would ask you, how do we pick the right AI and make sure it's secure and up to standards? Like what direction would you point them in?
extraordinarily difficult question, and I think the thing about it is, I mean, the realizations that companies are coming to is that for kind of corporate purposes outside of the very general, where the kind of market actors are super well known, the question of kind of what is our best option is super connected to the underlying training material, right? Which creates this smorgasbord of options, many of which don't have the kind of transparency or visibility or exposure to kind of like for want of a better term, open source pen testing that the likes of an OpenAI will have had so far. So it's truly very difficult. You need to make a very close correlation between, let's say, the AI and the LLM and the data set and the kind of corporate actor that you're dealing with. So is it a well-known company? Is it a SOC certified company? Is it a publicly traded company? Or is it a startup that is not going to be able to provide you through scale or maturity any of the kind of assurances that you need in order to understand how the model has been put together? So on a model by model level, and I'm not a deep AI expert, extraordinarily hard, and you have to revert a little bit to kind of looking also at the enterprise.
Yeah, that makes sense. And we've identified, I think, 3 types of risk, and only talk mostly about one. The first risk we identified so far is, AI is enabling an attacker to attack with more volume and higher quality at the same time, which used to be a trade-off in the olden days. Now they can have high quality and volume. The second thing we've identified is like the AI itself in your company making errors, right? Those are accidents, but then you also have just human errors, right? People using AI in the wrong way or deploying it in the wrong way, training it in the wrong way. And I think, Dana, it was you that always said, like, we should try and remove the human from any process.
Right.
But I think as inverted PMs, we always think about security and identity, but inverted is also, infra uptime, right? That's also an inverted problem, like successes when nothing goes down, or quality, like AI quality. As long as the quality is high, no one is talking, but as soon as it drops, it's the same type of problem. And I hope that more people will start understanding the invertedness of the problems that they work on. And now, Dana, I wanted to ask you, how do we protect ourselves from great AI in the hands of unfortunate humans when it comes into our companies? Do you have any thoughts?
Well, one of the things is I think you need to govern the use of AI as it comes into an environment. And in enterprises, I talk about shadow AI and understanding where it's used. The problem is, just like cloud app security before, it is like the user wants to use this new whiz bang thing they see, and they have no idea AI is being used under the covers, nor probably do you, right? So discoverability and then being able to bring that under control is something that you need to do. The other thing, and you talked about it, but I think it's important to explicitly discuss, is like the way AI is now, you really need to go back to one of the tenets of zero trust, which is trust but verify, right? Like, you need to verify everything that comes out of an AI model. You can't take it as fact, and your employees shouldn't either, because we see it all the time. I use Google a lot in the Google ecosystem, and like, I love Google search and what they've done with AI, but just noticing, like, the other day I was searching for, like, how do I configure blah product, and the AI gave me a list of stuff, and it had the right configurations, but it also had the wrong configurations because it pulled in some info from like a certain model that wasn't applicable but was similar, right? And so you really need to check all the outputs of everything, and that's hard to have your employees do that as well, right? Like how do you make sure that they are using it correctly, and like the monitor the usage and how successful they are with those AI products and AI embedded products.
Also there, you're saying make sure you have the right quality, and if possible, take the human out of the loop for the quality checking as well, because the humans might not do
right
the right thing. So That's interesting. Dario, I want to go to you and feel free to respond. But one question I also want to ask you is you've been checking a lot of passkey sign-in flows recently. I saw you on LinkedIn, you were posting all the tests of the different ones you did because it's a kind of a new security feature. The world is still learning what it is and how it's actually better. Do you think AI will enable us to also make newer security features or make things better? Because we've only talked about the danger so far, but I'd love to go also to the positive side. But please respond.
Yeah, well, first I wanted to add to what Dana said. I think the pressure, and I'd really be curious to hear Amit's point of view of that. The pressure of the IT teams within large enterprises is again going up because everybody wants to use these new tools. People want to make their lives easier at work by using AI tools. So the pressure for the IT teams is to provide them those tools. And we've seen that years ago I remember like 20 years ago when we were using Skype to do instant messaging amongst coworkers. Everybody was using their personal Skype accounts to do instant messaging because companies just were maybe relying on email, but there was nothing that companies gave. Or we look 10, 15 years or 12 years back when Slack came up, every engineer wanted to start to use Slack and so there was a lot of shadow IT, instant messaging going on. And I think it's a similar thing we see now again with AI tools where employees see the value, they want to use it, or they feel the pressure to use them. And so the IT teams have to provide them something. And I think that's the benefit. I like that maybe transition to the question you asked, Yaron. There is a clear benefit people see. It makes people's life easier. It makes people's work better. It allows people to do things in a way they weren't able to do. And I think we also we'll see that on the security side. But it will open completely new paradigms. And I think authentication in AI world is maybe something we should dedicate a whole episode at some point. But handing it over to Amit is like, how do you see the pressure of employees like sometimes, if they stand in the middle of a factory or truck drivers in the middle of nowhere, and they see that there are tools that help them do their work better than the ones the IT gives them. How do you handle that?
Yeah, the AI craze is real, right? And AI is moving at a pace that nobody can catch. Even for me, as a technology enthusiast, I find it very hard to keep up with the changes that are happening on a daily basis. So I would say the enthusiasm is there. Everybody wants to get on board on this journey. Everybody wants to learn, but sometimes I feel that simple I would say automation, or when we talk about simple workload is being transitioned in the name of AI. So sometimes I really feel that there are things that could be done without AI, and there are things that can be done with AI. So to differentiate that and to guide the employees really on that approach and that path, that's where we feel a lot of challenges because
Are you saying that not everything that could be done by AI should be done by AI? Is that what you're saying?
exactly exactly my point, right? So when you look at every problem, the AI is not the solution to every problem. So that's what we are trying to bring in sometimes. And the training challenge is obviously there because everybody wants to do something, and also providing the right kind of tools that are secure and ready for employees to use is also a challenge.
Dana?
I totally agree with that message, which is like AI is not for everything, and you need to understand that. Well, while we were talking about it, it made me think about because we've been talking about AI and how bad it is, right, from a security focus and all the issues, but AI has some amazing uses too, particularly in security, like threat hunting, looking through huge amounts of logs, finding attacker patterns. I don't know why you'd ever write a report writer into a product anymore. Like I would just say, pass whatever you're trying to do in the UI to AI, and it would generate the proper report from the data for you. Why would you ever make an adapter again? Like AI could probably generate an adapter between two products, get data flow between each other. So there's some amazing uses. You just have to, make sure you understand the caveats, and I like the way Amit said, like it's exciting, but not for everything. And you need to understand that when you're looking at the adoption or trying to understand who in your org is making the adoption, like doing the adoption.
Yeah,
Yeah, I want
just
to say before you go, Amit, bye-bye, Tom. Thanks for being here. Any final words, any final thoughts before you disconnect, or do you have to go?
I really like the last point that Dana made, which is about mindfulness in terms of how enterprises deploy and leverage this, and in terms of where it comes in with the thought process for how kind of how users engage with it, whether it's at the start, whether it's at the end, for quality control or so on. But super happy to be here with you guys and talk next week.
See you next week.
Ciao.
Ciao. Amit, you were going to say something before we...
Yeah. I just wanted to add upon Dana's point, because a traditional training that we used to do with emails and platforms, that doesn't do the cut anymore, because things are moving fast. When you're dealing with blue collar workers, when you're dealing with shop floor workers, you have to be creative. It is not only necessarily related to, they won't understand what is a AI model or so on, right? You have to get creative with respect to different forms of training that can be imparted in a different way. I believe learning and development teams have a harder job to do now with respect to the moving technologies. Yeah, that's what I wanted to add.
Yeah, and so Dana, you were saying that the question I asked a few minutes ago, like, does AI also help us to make new things possible that weren't possible before for security? So you already said spotting stuff, detection, anomaly detection. I'm assuming you're talking about anomaly detection and pattern recognition and those kind of things. You also said something interesting, is why would we even build UIs around these logs? It's just like, this is something I heard in another podcast a few months ago that was saying most software is just a UI on top of a database. And if AI can basically help me to understand the underlying data, I don't need the UI anymore. So if you're a security company that's making a UI on top of some logs, you should really be wondering, like, what is the future here? Because there can be in the future, someone like myself or me, to Dario, or all of us could come to the office on Monday. The AI could tell us something went wrong in the weekend, and we just ask them to show us a report. And we say, oh, add this column or remove that, or now show it to me in a graph. Now make a PDF with our corporate, layout on it, so I can print it and give it to my manager, and I don't have to click through UIs anymore. And so that, in that sense, a lot of security SaaS days are numbered, right?
Right. I think though that, like, what I'm advocating is, yes, that is like, you can already do it now. I do it when we're editing the podcast and we say, like, take the transcript, give me a summary, like put it in a bullet point. Like, it's all AI makes all that simple. It's amazing. I don't think the UI is going away. What I think is the investment in the UI should shift to say, like, instead of hard coding all these pages that you do, like, really just ask the AI, like, to manipulate the screen as you want it. And so your coding is much less, right? Because you're so I think UI will always exist. I think that AI will help with the rendering and the like why are you putting resources into that? There was another thing that you brought up that I think in terms of product and product usage that I think we should talk about, which is it's something I struggle with as an inverted PM, is you have these ML and AI based detections are able to much easier spot like new attacks, evolving attacks. But how do you explain it to the admin, like what the thing that was found? Because it's like in the bowels of the AI that the AI decided that this is an active attack. And like, how do you represent that? My customers will always say, like, you flagged this session as malicious. Why? Right. And because AI, and we would say, oh, because AI told us it was bad. And it probably was bad, but like that is always the struggle, is the customers or the person that looking at the logs, the admins want to know why. And so explainability of AI is like a huge issue.
Yeah. Because if you have a false positive, and no, I want to come to you,
Right.
Dario, about it as well. Because if you have a false positive and it has like stock price changing consequences, you can't just say, oh, it's because AI told us so. That's not enough, right? So you have to give more details. Dario.
Sorry, I was muted. And I think that's really bringing a good point around the defense part. Like when we're talking about AI making attacks much better and cheaper and faster and evolving more, like how do we defend against that? And I think sometimes AI is not the right answer to defend on the defense side. I think what we're going to see, and I think what we're already seeing, is like what I call deterministic preventions or protections being much more of a can be bigger help than trying to defend an AI attack with an AI model. So the rise of passkeys for me, or FIDO standards in general, is a good example. Like we go away from things that can be breached with computing power or with trying or with spraying, like passwords, and we go to phishing resistant authentication methods. So while phishing is getting much easier with AI, or you can do much more scaled, sophisticated spear phishing attack campaigns with AI, I think that on the defense side, we have to go down to much more deterministic protections that eliminate these attack venues, because the AI is going to get better. Like just because the AI hands had 6 fingers last year doesn't mean that they will always have 6 fingers. And so having an AI that looks for, does anyone have 6 fingers on that picture, is if your defense is based on that, you're on very thin ice.
Yeah, so I like what you say, like taking entire attack vectors off the table basically makes it impossible for an AI. It doesn't matter how sophisticated it is. If you have a passkey-based sign-in with a FIDO2 key, you can't be phished, no matter how sophisticated the phishing email is that you get. I want to bring it back to something we discussed a few episodes ago, which is this critical attacker journeys, right? And in the end, whoever's using AI to attack our employees or customers or users, they have to go after the same thing, because they have to still get money to feed their families or like further their agendas. And so the end of the attacker journey is still kind of the same, right? It's a credit card, it's a patent, it's like supply chain information, or the end, or the funnel doesn't have to be attacker. It could also be stupidity, right? Like someone accidentally sharing something, someone buying something that's not good, or someone violating a regulation without intention. So the end of the journey, the critical attacker journey or the critical accident journey, maybe we should call it still CAJ, both of them, it's still the same. And so knowing that they are still the same, I wanted to go to you, Amit. I'm not sure if you've listened to our episode of critical attacker journeys, but basically what we were saying is that you start with the end. What is the badness that could happen? And then you start going back with the steps until you are where the critical attacker journey. So if I want to get to your credit card, I would have to first phish you for a username, password, or maybe something else. Then I have to sign into your account. Then I have to search for your credit card, find it, and then I have to take it and abuse it somewhere else. So there's so many things we can do in the middle. So how is AI changing a journey like that? And how are you thinking about critical attacker journeys in what you see?
Yeah, I mean, as I said at the start of the podcast, attackers are getting smarter, and especially with AI, all of the so talk about a misconfiguration that was there probably 5 years back. Spotting as an admin or as internal safety guards, we took our own time to spot those things. But with AI, as much as we can find those misconfigurations, the attacker can also find that much easier, because that is their whole job. Our job is basically shielding it, but their job is finding it. So I still believe that common misconfigurations are still the attack path for any attacker or threat actor, and those are the ones that can lead to quick wins for enterprises and organizations to focus on still today, so that the attack perimeter can be basically smaller. And just to add to Dana's point, like he was talking previously about logs and things like that, I believe transparency is important when we are using AI, because users also want to establish trust with the system. But sometimes I also feel if the black box magic is not there and it is over transparent, then it is also providing like a map to the attacker, because they know how everything functions, right? So ultimately there should be a balance, and it should not be in the wrong hands.
Yeah. So I think we have to round it up here for this week's recording. So you've heard about different kinds of AI risk, making attackers stronger. Users may accidentally doing things wrong, our models being biased. You've heard a bunch of those things. You've also heard about how to counter it, making sure that AI suppliers meet certain requirements, still using the critical attacker journeys, but doing them maybe faster, finding the holes faster with AI than an attacker with AI can find them. And also we talked about taking entire attack vectors, off the table, so that even if AI gets more sophisticated, they just don't exist anymore. So if you can eliminate entire journeys that could lead to badness, that's even better. And we talked a little bit about transparency and responsibility, where we say we need to explain it to the user, but not too much. And also we need to check whether or not the AI is doing well. And there, like we always say, Dana said, you should try and also take the human out of the loop there, because a human is sometimes less well versed at finding what's right than another system. With that, we want to close for this week. Thank you for listening, watching, wherever you are. And just keep everybody safe out there. Have a great day. Bye-bye.